Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be time to put your big boy pants on. I've got an email here from a guy I've been coaching for, I guess it's close to 6 months. When he originally came to me, he was in a 20-year unhappy marriage. And what I was first helping him with was trying to figure out whether he should stay in this relationship or not. And I don't make those kinds of decisions for people, by the way. I ask them questions and help them arrive at their own conclusions so they can make their own decisions. I'm not here to make people's minds up for them, but what I can do is ask people questions to help them arrive and get past their fears and their limiting beliefs to do what really deep down is in their best interest, or what they deep down know what they need to do. And this guy was really struggling with it because he's got a family, they've got a house together, but he had just gotten to a place in his life where he realized that he'd been living a lie for the better part of 2 decades. And he's got a couple kids that he's very happy and very grateful for, but at the end of the day, it was just a loveless marriage. They were really just kind of roommates, just hanging out. And even when they first got together, he was never really that into her. And it took him to get to the point where he was basically midlife, if you will, midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And he realized that he just had been living a lie. He wasn't being honest with himself and where he was at. And it really wasn't fair for him or his wife or even his kids to continue living this lie and being in a relationship with somebody that he just was never at any point in his life crazy about or in love with her. He just, in essence, had settled. And so he's had a lot of big changes, a lot of upheaval in his life, and he's dealt with a lot of very stressful things over the past 6 to 7 months. He started dating a lot, he's dealing with his own fears, his own limiting beliefs. He's got a really amazing woman that he's in a relationship with now, and he's really in love with her, and he's really happy, and she's starting to fall in love with him. And this is the kind of woman that he always dreamed he could be with, and things are easy and effortless in a lot of ways, but he still is dealing with his own fears, his own limiting beliefs, because you got to remember, this guy spent 20 years of his life living a lie, never believing that what he's experiencing now was possible or in the cards for him. And so he's dealing with health things, because obviously he didn't take the best care of his body that he should have, but he's more focused on those things. He's getting into network chiropractic care, and so that's having an effect on his life. He's expanding in his business. He's earning more money than he's ever earned in his life at this point. And so he's not only got his new household that he's paying those expenses for, but he's still got the ex-wife-to-be and the kids he's taking care of. And so at times, he really deals with a lot of stress, plus the fact that he can't believe deep down, or he's having a hard time believing that, wow, do I really deserve to have this really awesome, amazing woman in his life? Their sex life is great. She's really into him. He's really into her. And it's just something that he's never experienced. In essence, he's living what he always thought was the fantasy. And because he spent most of his life living a life of mediocrity, it's kind of hard to get used to. And so what I like about the email, and why from time to time when he sends a good email in, I read through it in videos, is because everybody's going to have these kinds of experiences. You're going to have those fears. You're going to have those doubts. You're going to have those limiting beliefs. You're going to have that old way of thinking that you're trying to get past. And so everybody that's applying the things that I teach in my book and in my videos and the articles on my website is going to struggle with this at some point in time. And so by understanding what other people are going through and how they're dealing with it and how they're implementing the things that I teach, it can help you if you're struggling in these areas of your life as well, get past them. Because the longer you're able to maintain this, the longer it's like eventually it becomes your new paradigm. It becomes what you're used to. So I've got a quote that I wrote on this topic, and then we're going to go through his email. And the quote says, "If you want to reach your full potential in every area of your life, you must become comfortable with operating outside of your comfort zone. This will require you to deal with stress, fear, failure, and tremendous uncertainty as your actions take you into unfamiliar territory. It's much easier to be mediocre, play it safe, and live a life that is less than what you are capable of living. But this will eventually rob you of your enthusiasm for life and living, and significantly reduce your life expectancy. However, by pushing beyond your comfort zone and taking action in spite of your fears and the potential for failure, you will discover that you can be so much more than you are today. The more you become comfortable with being uncomfortable, the better your quality of life will be and the longer you will live. Happiness and enthusiasm expand your life and your health. Unhappiness and hopelessness takes it from you. I mean, it's common sense when you think about it, but when you're really happy and you look at life in terms of what's possible or what could I possibly accomplish in the future by taking the appropriate steps and action I need to take right now, and you see the results of that versus just trying to live in a little box your whole life like this guy was doing until he miraculously woke up and realized this really fucking sucks. I'm miserable and I'm not happy and I'm fucking my children up by continuing to live this lie. The average person never wakes up from that. They ignore that. They drink alcohol. They eat excessively. They watch TV. They turn the radio on. They just do everything they can to avoid feeling what they feel inside. And eventually at some point, they give up. They lose hope. And when you lose hope, you don't have a reason for living anymore. You don't want to go to the gym and take care of your body. You don't care about eating healthier because what's the fucking point? Life sucks, right? So if life sucks and you're not happy, why would you want to take better care of your life? Why would you want to do things that are life-giving and life-enhancing? So let's go through his email. He says, "Hey Corey, things are going really rough. I made some financial projections as my business is partly seasonal, and I realize that I might get into trouble as I supported this year my broken family and tried to build a new life." Well, part of being peaceful and relaxed and balanced also means that you have some money in the bank, because people who have an unbalanced life also tend to be unbalanced in their finances, and they tend to live paycheck to paycheck. And as a peak performance coach, I'm all about people having a well-rounded, balanced life. That means they take care of their bodies. That means they eat right. That means that they work out and they do proper cardio exercise. That means that they have money in the bank and aren't living paycheck to paycheck. And if you're one of those people that's living paycheck to paycheck, you either need to increase your income or your revenue and decrease your expenses. You got to live within your means. Because if you don't, if you're used to having a stressful life, then being stressed out financially is going to cause you to always be spending whatever money you get in. You're always living paycheck to paycheck. Remember, you've probably heard me say this before. People will act consistently with who they believe themselves to be, whether that view is accurate or not. And if you're stressed and you don't feel like success and having a well-balanced life is in the cards for you, then you'll do things like living paycheck to paycheck or running up tons of debt on your credit cards so you can be stressed out all the time. It literally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. He says, all of my money is the house, and my ex-wife-to-be, she's got all her money in cash. Well, it's interesting that your ex-wife-to-be has plenty of money in the bank, but yet you're basically paycheck to paycheck, even though you're earning more money now than you ever have in your whole entire life. So obviously, what I would say to you in that perspective is you need to reduce your expenses and increase your revenue. That way, when you have bad months or you have a few down months, or if your business or your career tends to be seasonal income-wise, when you get in those lean times, you're not going to be stressing out because you got plenty of money to get through the lean times. He says, but my ex-wife-to-be has refused to talk with me and find a creative, fair solution. She just said, well, your new girlfriend can help you out. So in other words, she's trying to punish you and make things difficult for you, because in this particular guy's relationship with his ex-wife, she didn't want to end the marriage. She didn't want to end the relationship. And so she's trying to punish him and make him miserable because she's always been successful in their relationship at manipulating him. And so that's one of the things he's having a hard time with. He was always a pleaser. He was always going along with what she wanted in order to try to keep from pissing her off. And now that he's in a new relationship with a new woman, he's really happy. She's doing everything she can to stress him out and make him miserable. Why? Because that's what's always worked in the past. And so, like I told him in my email response to him, it's like you don't really have any control over what your ex-wife does or your daughters do, because one of his daughters is kind of giving him the silent treatment and not speaking to him. It's like the only thing you have control over is how you show up and the meanings that you give things. And so if your ex-wife won't work with you, I mean, obviously you can go through the legal system, which is just going to cost more money and more expense in attorney's fees. Or you can have because the only thing that's going to make your ex-wife change her approach is once she realizes that no matter what she does, all of those games of manipulation that have worked on you in the past for the 2 decades that she's been in your life, when she realizes that you're not coming back and that you're not going to change how you're going about your life, then she's going to realize that she's going to have to change her approach. He says, at the same time, my daughter refuses to see or even talk with me, again, because of my new girlfriend. Because, again, your daughter learned this from her mother. And in the past, both of these women in your life have always been able to intimidate you. He says they're vacationing for the 4th time this year, and instead are just saying, well, maybe you'll come, or you just may come back. So that's their belief system. They're thinking, well, if we make his life so fucking miserable, guess what? He's going to want to come back. Because that's what they've always done in the past. He says, I was so angry with this that I said, well, if you don't cooperate, I'll sell a house from underneath your ass. He says, but a big problem is, in my head, I feel so challenged by life in every fucking area. Health, my friendships, because he's got a lot of friends and family, a lot of couples that they were friends with, that have the same kind of shitty, mediocre relationship that he was involved with. And so they're obviously not supportive. Why? Especially some of the women have been giving him a lot of grief, the wives of his friends. Why? Because misery loves company. And they want him to continue making the same mediocre choices that they're making. Because everybody that's in your life, when you make these choices and you expand beyond who you are and what you're doing now, they're not going to like it. Because it's like a big reflection to them of how unhappy they are. He says, I've got a broken family. Obviously, I'm stressed out over money. I've got this new relationship. He says, so in the last few days, I've entered into a fearful state. And in this, I'm quite preoccupied with worst case scenarios. So obviously, he's in a fearful state. What you focus on expands. And if you're in a fearful state, remember, what you fear, you attract. But what you look at disappears. And so the key is, when you're challenged in these moments, is you've got to ask yourself, what must I focus on right now, today? What action do I need to take right now in order to get where I want to be? That's why it's so important to focus on your goals, your mission, your purpose in life. Because you don't have any control over what your ex-wife and your daughter is doing. All you can do is show up and put your best foot forward. And if they're going to try to punish you or manipulate you, then that's pretty much the way it is. And that's why it's so important to take action and focus on what you need to be doing, as opposed to sitting in your house and feeling sorry for yourself and worrying about what may or may not happen in the future. When you do that, you're not living in the present moment. You're not taking action on what you need to take action upon right now in the present moment. That's why it's so important to live moment by moment and do what you need to do right now. Because when you get... It's like obstacles are the scary things you see when you take your eyes off your goals. And so that's what's happening. You're taking your eyes off the prize. You're taking your eyes off of what you want to create or continue to create and expand in your life. And you're getting focused on all the what if it doesn't work out because you're in a fearful state. He says, and I think this obviously is not the right mindset at the moment. You're correct. He says, I started doing NSA here in Europe, and the first session was quite promising. I hope this helps. Well, that's one of the great things and why I'm such a huge advocate of NSA, Network Chiropractic Care. NSA stands for Network Spinal Analysis. And what it does versus traditional chiropractic where they crack the bones is that it helps put you physiologically into a peaceful and relaxed state. Because when you're in a peaceful and relaxed state, you're no longer hijacked by your fears. And when you're in a peaceful, relaxed state, you're going to make better choices and better decisions that will bring about more circumstances that are peaceful and relaxed and of ease and delight in your life. He says, I also came across issues with my new girlfriend, who I'm with together for 2 months now. In essence, at least from my part, most things are awesome. Sex is great, we talk, we communicate really well, and there's a deep connection. The only issue from my side is that she sometimes is really and easily annoyed by me. Minor things like how I drive and so on. Well, remember, like I talk about in my book, especially you're going through a really fearful time, and so anytime a woman, especially a feminine woman, notices that you're fearful or you're unsure of yourself or you're acting weak, when they sense that chink in your armor, they're going to see if they can exploit it. They just can't. Women naturally, instinctively are going to do that to help you become a better man. Because when you're unsure of yourself, when you're acting weak or you're acting indecisive, they don't like it. It makes them feel unsafe and uncomfortable. And so that's why they're going to push your buttons to see what you're made of. But when you make the right decisions, when you take care of the things that you need to take care of by focusing on living in the present moment, smiling, being humorous, not letting anything that she does diminish you in any way, she's going to realize that you're strong and you are the rock, you are the mountain. And when she senses your strength, she's going to feel comfortable relaxing and moving back into her feminine. He says, I handle this playfully, and if necessary, I ask her to always be nice. He says, what's really difficult for me is I could have her more at my side as I'm really struggling in life. Well, you don't want to make her your mommy or your therapist. That's the wrong way to look at it. A woman is in your life to complement your already awesome life, not for you to lean on and make her your mommy or your therapist, because when you do that, women will support you for a period of time, but when it continues on, they're not going to like it because it forces them to move into their masculine. And when you force that feminine woman to move into her masculine, she's going to resent it, and she's going to become bitchy, and she's become really difficult to be around. He says, but this would mean chasing her, and I obviously know at this point it's not a good idea. He says, I have a hard time withstanding this urge. Well, this is something that's new. You got to remember, you spent 2 decades of your life settling and being in a mediocre relationship. So cut yourself some slack, dude. You're doing fucking great. Most men never have the balls to do what you've done, which is to create an awesome new life and lifestyle. He says she, in essence, was single for many of the past 2 decades, so for her, even being in a relationship is a big deal. And she's really committed to it. She says she loves my core, and if she could build a man's core, it would be just like mine. That's a huge compliment to you, dude. Because he's dating a very beautiful, successful alpha female, and most guys are fucking pussies, and she's told him this on numerous occasions. And so she's really picky, and she's not going to be with just any old guy. She prefers to be single if she can't be with a really strong man. And because he's doing the right things that I talk about in my book, she's complimenting him by being in his life and doing things that she normally wouldn't do. He says she says that she feels me even if I'm not there, and she feels safe all of the time. That's huge. That means she feels safe and comfortable. That means that she's comfortable letting you be the leader, the alpha in the relationship. In other words, she's being submissive to you. And it's only because you're acting like a real man. And that's why she spent most of the past 2 decades being single, because most guys don't measure up. He says, and she would allow me to do things sexually that she never allowed any other man to do. He says, but I think I'm more like the wild, choppy, chaotic, creative, and uncontrollable woman. Yeah, it's like all masculine, confident guys, we like a woman that's kind of a feminine, wild stallion that experiences all of her emotions. He says she's really quite calm and structured in her daily life, and she has a big issue with this difference between us. For example, he tends to be a slob, basically, and she doesn't like it because she's kind of a neat freak. And so she's always busting his balls about it. But at the end of the day, he's not going to change who he is for her. He says she says I really whipped up her quiet single life totally unexpectedly, and I've gotten past all of her resistance and the walls that she normally has up to keep most guys out. He says, I feel her really struggling and even doubting at this point, which in bad moments freaks me out. He says, I'm in contact with her and I remain confident all about this. And I say, let's just focus on the moment and tell me everything that's on your mind and the future will take care of itself. He says, but sometimes it's just enough for me. I wish the relationship really felt safe for me, but that's not exactly the case at the moment. Any ideas on how to deal with this? Well, it's great that you're communicating with her and you're getting her to talk about all the things, her fears, her doubts, and communicating like I talk about and teach in my book, and also the video I did a few years ago called How to Communicate with Women Effectively. And so this guy is always doing great, but he always in his mind thinks he's doing worse than he is. And so it's like I go through his emails, and it's like, so what he's doing a great job of is maintaining his emotional self-control and showing up and doing the right things when he's with her. But obviously it's like he does a lot of email coaching with me, and he's always like basically wants reassurance from me that he's doing the right thing. He's doing a beautiful fucking job. And I've actually got because this particular email he wrote a couple weeks ago, but I got another one from him today. And what's interesting, like I was talking about earlier in the video, how I said to him that he needs to be congruent with who he is and not let anything his wife or his daughter does diminish him in any way. Because once they realize that you're not coming back and you're not going to let them unsettle you, then they're going to change their ways. Because again, he's basically spent 2 decades teaching them and enabling their behavior that they can just try to intimidate him and he'll be the pleaser and he'll do what they want. And so what he wrote me in the email that I got today is that his wife and his daughter's actually talking to him again, and his wife is actually being nice and sweet because he's been fucking strong. He's been like the rock, he's been like the mountain, and he's congruent with his words consistently. And I told him that that would happen when I originally answered this email for him a few weeks ago, and I got confirmation from him today that he's been doing that. And what happened? His wife and his daughter are a hell of a lot better and nicer to him now because they've realized that trying to intimidate him and mistreat him and not be nice to him is just simply not going to work. He's like James Bond. He's doing really fucking awesome. I'm so proud of him. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching session. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and choosing whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.